Shadow, a dog's vengeance. A lonely night, a fateful encounter. The rain was relentless, drumming against the rooftops like an ominous warning. Ahmed pulled his jacket tighter around himself as he walked home from his night shift. The city streets were mostly deserted, except for the occasional homeless figure huddled in a dark corner. As he turned a corner, he noticed something. A black dog sitting under a flickering street lamp. Its fur was soaked, its ribs faintly visible beneath the damp coat. But its eyes burned with something unsettlingly human. Ahmed hesitated. He wasn't a dog person, but something about this animal made him pause. He pulled a half-eaten biscuit from his pocket and tossed it toward the dog. To his surprise, the dog didn't lunge for it. Instead, it looked up at him, staring, unblinking, unwavering. A chill crept up Ahmed's spine. "What's your deal, buddy?" he muttered, more to himself than to the dog. Then slowly the dog stood up, took a cautious step forward, and lowered its head slightly. Not like a desperate stray, but like a soldier awaiting orders. A strange sensation passed through Ahmed. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Well, I guess you're coming with me then." The dog followed, and from that moment on, Shadow became his shadow. The first signs of darkness. Weeks passed. Shadow wasn't just intelligent, he was unnatural. He never barked without reason, never begged for food, and never acted like an ordinary dog. At night, he would sit by the door, staring into the darkness as if listening to whispers Ahmed couldn't hear. One evening, as Ahmed was getting ready for work, he noticed Shadow growling at the window. "What is it?" Ahmed muttered, stepping closer. Outside, nothing but the dimly lit alley. But then, movement. A dark figure at the end of the street standing too still, watching. Ahmed's breath hitched. A coincidence or something worse? Shadow bared his teeth, his deep growl vibrating through the room. Ahmed tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just paranoia, maybe. But Shadow knew. The intruder. That night, exhaustion overtook Ahmed, and he collapsed onto the couch instead of making it to bed. A sound woke him. A soft creak. The front door. His blood ran cold. Then suddenly, Shadow let out a blood-curdling snarl and lunged toward the darkness. A muffled curse, a struggle. Ahmed scrambled to switch on the lights. And there, in his doorway, a masked intruder wrestling against Shadow's grip. The man's arm was in Shadow's jaws, crimson leaking through his sleeves. "Ah, get this thing off me!" the intruder shrieked. Ahmed's heart pounded as he grabbed a nearby lamp and swung it with all his strength. The impact sent the man sprawling to the floor. But Shadow didn't let go. Not until Ahmed whispered, "Enough." Shadow released the man with a final snarl, his muzzle stained red. The intruder gasped for air, clutching his bleeding arm. Ahmed's hands shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed the police. All the while, Shadow never took his eyes off the man. The unseen enemy. The police came. They cuffed the intruder, dragging him to his feet. "Who is he?" Ahmed asked, his voice hoarse. One of the officers sighed. "A repeat offender. Robbery, assault, and worse." Ahmed swallowed hard. "How did he get in?" The officer pointed at the lock, no signs of forced entry. That meant he had a key. Ahmed's stomach twisted. He only knew one person who had access to his place before this, his ex-boss. A man he had exposed for fraud just months ago. A man who had sworn revenge. And this intruder? A hired hitman. Ahmed felt the floor shift beneath him. His throat was dry. This wasn't just a burglary, this was an execution. And he would have been dead if not for... His gaze flicked to Shadow. The dog sat beside him, tongue lolling slightly as if he hadn't just nearly torn a man apart. The officer chuckled. "Hell of a guard dog you got there." Ahmed exhaled. "Yeah, he is. No, he's more than that." Vengeance in the dark. Ahmed knew this wasn't over. His ex-boss had tried once, he would try again. And Shadow knew it too. Days passed in uneasy silence. Shadow was always on high alert, watching, waiting. Ahmed barely slept. Then one night, it happened again. A rustling outside, then a soft click at the door. Ahmed's breath hitched. He reached under the couch, gripping the baseball bat he now kept there. The door creaked open. A dark figure stepped inside. And then, a blur of black fur, a howl of rage. Shadow attacked. This time there was no struggle, no screams. Just the sickening sound of bone cracking under pressure. Ahmed turned on the lights and saw the blood pooling beneath Shadow's paws. The second intruder lay motionless, Shadow stepped back, panting, his eyes dark as midnight. Ahmed stared, heart pounding. He should have been afraid, but he wasn't. Instead, he dropped to his knees and placed a hand on Shadow's head. "Good boy," he whispered. Shadow licked the blood from his muzzle and wagged his tail. The last Shadow. Ahmed reported the incident. The police took care of the body. His ex-boss was arrested the next day, linked to both attacks. Justice was served. But deep down, Ahmed knew. Justice hadn't been served by the law. It had been served by Shadow. The dog he had saved. The dog who had saved him. And as Ahmed looked at Shadow, now curled up beside him, he realized something. Some protectors don't wear uniforms. Some guardians walk on 4 legs. And some shadows? Some shadows kill. Title Shadow, The Hunter's Return, Part 2. A new beginning, a lingering fear. It had been 3 months since Shadow saved Ahmed's life. The intruder was dead. His corrupt ex-boss Farid was in prison. Life was supposed to return to normal. But it didn't. Shadow had changed. The once quiet and observant dog was now restless. He would pace near the windows, sniff at the door, growl at nothing. His sharp, intelligent eyes always searching, always waiting. Ahmed noticed it too. A strange presence, a feeling like someone was watching him. Then one night, Shadow froze near the front door. His body stiffened, ears perked up. He let out a deep, menacing growl. Ahmed's stomach twisted. "Shadow, what is it?" Shadow didn't blink, didn't move. A cold shiver ran down Ahmed's spine. He slowly walked to the door and with shaky hands pulled it open. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Ahmed exhaled sharply. "Man, I'm getting paranoid." He turned back and saw something on the floor. A single black leather glove. His breath caught, his hands went cold. Shadow's growl grew deeper. Something was wrong. Someone had been here, watching. The nightmare wasn't over, it was just beginning. The mark of the hunter. The next morning, Ahmed took the glove to the police. The officer barely looked at it. "It's just a glove," he said, shrugging. "Maybe someone dropped it." Ahmed frowned. "No, you don't understand. Someone left this outside my door. My dog, he knew something was wrong." The officer sighed. "Look, we don't have evidence of a crime. Unless you see someone or get a direct threat, there's nothing we can do." Ahmed gritted his teeth. He was alone in this. That night, Ahmed hesitated before unlocking his apartment door. Shadow was stiff beside him, ears twitching. His gaze locked on the door. Something was off. Ahmed's pulse quickened as he turned the knob and pushed the door open. At first, everything seemed normal. Then he saw it. A deep, crude X scratched into the wooden door. His heart pounded. He turned to Shadow. The dog bared his teeth, his body tense with rage. Someone had been here, again. Ahmed clenched his fists. "Who the hell is doing this?" The answer came that same night. A whisper on the dark web. A name buried in police files. Hassan the Hunter. A professional hitman, ruthless, precise, he never failed. Ahmed's blood ran cold. The glove, the X. It wasn't a warning, it was a promise. Hassan was coming. The shadows move. Ahmed barely slept. Every sound felt like a threat. Every shadow held a killer. Shadow didn't rest either. He waited. He watched. Then one night, 3:14 a.m., a sound. Soft, deliberate. Inside the apartment. Ahmed's heart stopped. He wasn't alone. Shadow was already moving. Silent as death. He crouched low, eyes locked on the bedroom door. Ahmed reached under his pillow, fingers wrapping around a knife. Cold sweat dripped down his back. The door handle moved slowly. A breath of silence. Then the door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside. Ahmed barely had time to react before Shadow lunged. A deep guttural snarl, a sharp bone-snapping bite. A man's voice, low, furious. "Tch, impressive dog." Ahmed's heart hammered. He knew that voice.
Hassan.
The assassin and the beast. Ahmed flicked on the light. Hassan stood there, tall, muscular, clad in black. Blood dripped from his arm where Shadow had bitten him. The assassin didn't flinch. His eyes, cold and merciless, locked onto Ahmed. A predator measuring his prey. Ahmed tightened his grip on the knife. "You're not walking out of here." Hassan smirked. "No, I'm not." His hand flicked to his belt. A blade flashed. Shadow growled low, his body coiled to strike. Hassan chuckled. "Smart dog, dangerous, but I've killed worse." "Try it," Ahmed spat. The assassin moved first, lightning fast. The blade sliced through the air. Ahmed barely dodged, stumbling back. Shadow attacked. A blur of black fur, teeth sinking into flesh. A sharp, brutal snap. Hassan gasped, staggering. His knife clattered to the floor. Ahmed didn't hesitate. He grabbed a chair and slammed it over Hassan's head. The assassin crumpled to his knees. Blood dripped from his mouth. Shadow wasn't done. He launched himself at Hassan's throat. A gurgled scream, a violent struggle. Then silence. Hassan lay still, dead. Ahmed stood frozen. Shadow, his muzzle soaked in blood, slowly turned to him. It was over. Again. The final warning. The police arrived. They found a dead hitman, a terrified man, and a blood-stained dog sitting silently beside his owner. One officer, a grizzled detective, studied the scene, then looked at Ahmed. "You're lucky," he muttered. "Hassan never failed a job. If it weren't for your dog—" He glanced at Shadow, shaking his head. "You wouldn't be standing here." Ahmed swallowed hard. "Is it over?" The detective sighed. "For now. But men like Farid? Even in prison, they have reach." Ahmed looked down at Shadow. The dog met his gaze, steady, loyal, unshaken. He wasn't just a pet. He was a warrior, a guardian, and wherever Ahmed went, Shadow would follow. The dog who killed for love. Ahmed moved to a new city, a new home, a fresh start. But some nights, when the wind howled through the trees, when the darkness stretched too deep, he would wake up to find Shadow sitting by the door. Waiting, watching, because some ghosts never rest, and neither do the ones who hunt them.